Hello, sir. Mr. Sriram, how are you doing?
Hi, very good, sir. Thank you so much. And it's always a pleasant feeling whenever I get an opportunity to come and spend some time with you.
Okay.
I'm always some sort of rejuvenation happens, and I'm really thankful to you for that.
Yes, sir. Same here, actually. Yes.
Yes.
So, of course, today we have one topic, hot topic in our hand.
Oh, good.
So, I want to straight away dive into it.
Excellent. Let's not.
Given the circumstance, lot of pressure in the air
Yes.
with regard to the second lockdown being planned for Bangalore and all those stuff.
Yes.
So, I thought we'll jump straight into the topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, this is actually in continuation with our Aam Aadmi Conversations number 5.
Number 5.
In which we were trying to draw a description of who is an Aam Aadmi.
All right. Okay.
So this is a follow-up of that, or I would say feedback received
From that.
3 feedbacks were received.
Okay.
One was of course regarding the coffee and tea which we
Which
covered
we
last
discussed
time.
the last time. Yes.
And then of course 2 more are there. This is the second one.
All right. No problem.
So this one actually is, I got this question from one of my acquaintances.
Okay.
It's again a pretty lengthy question and I had to print it out because there are so many aspects being covered in this.
Okay. No problem. That's all right.
So what I will do is I will read out, this is not actually like the coffee tea conversation, point by point. That is not the way this one goes. So this is going in a more prosy fashion.
All right.
So I will read out the question in full first.
In full. Okay.
And then I have noted down a few references, that also I will cover. Subsequently we will get into the discussion.
Absolutely no problem. Looking forward to that. Yeah.
So here is, I'm just going with this letter I have printed out.
Right.
Hello Aam Aadmi ji. Hope you are doing well. I happened to view Aam Aadmi Conversations number 5 that is posted in your channel.
Right.
I viewed it along with my uncle. Okay. Both of us enjoyed the discourse.
That's very nice.
I have some thoughts that I'd like to share as follows. My uncle estimates,
Right.
and I'd agree, that you are a gentleman past your midlife. That is, you are 50 years or over in age. My uncle is. Of course, guessing how old you are is not what I am up to. Nevertheless, let us assume you are 50 or over. Now, in Aam Aadmi Conversations number 5, you delved at length into who an Aam Aadmi is. You discussed attributes like urban versus rural and also economic stratification. I found your verbiage, blue-collared worker with an intellectual leaning, to describe an urban Aam Aadmi very interesting. Let me just turn the page. Then there was a description of a rural Aam Aadmi who is a shrewd, opportunistic village belly chewing away at some stuff. In brackets, presumably tobacco leaf. Around the end of that discourse, you humbly concluded that an Aam Aadmi is one who does not get any representation and one who faces, in quotes, reality. I assume you are implying the day-to-day struggle for survival. All that is fine as they may be. I want to share my own views on an Aam Aadmi as follows. I feel it was missed to mention that an Aam Aadmi can also be stratified by his or her age. I feel this is important because people of different generations espouse different kind of thinking, and that is what precisely leads to the coinage of terms like generation gap, etc. Assuming that you would agree with me, then in that case, I should assume that your discourse is only meant for audience of your age group? A question mark. I further would like to know what you, as a middle-aged urban Aam Aadmi from the middle class, dare I say that? I assume you are from the economic middle class because that platoon carries the highest probability for fitment of a person at random. Think about fatalism. That is asking what's your thoughts about fatalism. For young India is not a fatalistic generation. So I want to reread this line. For young India is not a fatalistic generation, but rather believes in smart hard work to achieve success. Preference is to model life as a method and not as a game of chance. Opportunism need not imply sacrifice of moral values anymore. One need not be Hippocratic in this day and time. Free thinking is welcome. No one is an untouchable, either physiologically or psychologically. Another very interesting way to look at an Aam Aadmi is as a role rather than a person. This is my uncle's thought. A person, when he or she returns home after a hard day's work and rejoins the family and lets go of the business attire and hence the pretense, when he or she merges into the cozy spirit of the home, having parked the formal affairs inside the shoe rack at the entrance, when he or she unwinds and completely becomes one with the family members, that's when the person has become an Aam Aadmi. Until the next business day, that is. By the way, this is just one scenario to wear the Aam Aadmi hat, that is role. In essence, Aam Aadmi is a role that one assumes depending on the circumstance. Like for another example, a lawyer is not a lawyer anymore when he is visiting a doctor for addressing an ailment and so forth. At a minimum, you should qualify yourself as an Aam Aadmi based not only on economic strata and urbanness, but also in terms of age. So I'd say you are a middle class, middle-aged urban Aam Aadmi. I hope you would not mind. Definitely, I would not want to watch each episode with my uncle. Cheers. Okay. So based on this letter,
Right.
I've actually created a couple of references
Right.
so that everybody is on the same page.
Right. Okay.
Because some of the terminologies not all may know what's the meaning. So I just made some references, notes.
Right.
So I'll read that also and then we'll come back to the points.
Yeah, go ahead. No problem.
So fatalism is one of the terms that is used in this letter and what it means. It is a family of related philosophical doctrines that stresses the subjugation of all events or actions to fate or destiny, and is commonly associated with the consequent attitude of resignation in the face of future events which are thought to be inevitable. That is fatalism example. So another term that has been used in this letter is called opportunism. I think we spoke about opportunism in 5 also.
Yes.
When we called the the rural Aam Aadmi as an opportunist, shrewd opportunist. We'll come to that. Opportunism definition, the taking of opportunities as and when they arise, regardless of planning or principle. That is the definition. I think that is why he is talking about moral values, compromise. We'll come back to that. And the third term which I wanted to create a reference here is called hypocrisy. He has used hypocrisy. One need not be Hippocratic, he has told. So hypocrisy means the practice of claiming to have higher standards or more noble beliefs than is the case. That is, you are trying to put up a show which you are not actually believing in. That is called hypocrisy, contradicting your own beliefs or acting in opposition of your beliefs, your core beliefs. So this is what the letter is and the reference materials. So what are your thoughts?
Right. First of all, let me compliment you yourself and whoever has taken time out of their pretty busy schedules and pretty uncertain schedules, I would say, looking at the circumstances which are prevailing right now, to take a look at this video and come out with this rather interesting set of viewpoints, which I would say is limited to one's own thinking, I would say. Coming back to the first point which the gentleman has kindly pointed out with the reference of Aam Aadmi to age. First of all, let me say that I am not yet 50 years old.
Okay.
And
No,
yes,
do you agree you are a man of the Middle Ages?
yes, I was about
You're a
to come to
middle-aged
that.
man?
I was about to come to that. Let me, because he had pointed out about age in
No,
specific.
the way he points it out is
So-
because he clearly says he has watched that with his uncle, who is of similar age.
That's,
So
that's
maybe
all right.
his uncle is more capable of identifying what could be the age of your age.
No,
right?
that's all right. That's all right. I'm reaching
He may
50,
not-
I would say.
Okay, so you are a man of the Middle
And
Ages.
yes, I am. But I was about to come to that. Yes, I would say, I would rather put it this way, that when I described my personal viewpoint of an Aam Aadmi as an Aam Aadmi, I would say that age has no real strong reference to that. Because I would always view Aam Aadmi as a gentleman or as a person who is not much spoken about in the way it should have otherwise been. And that could be anybody. I mean, it need not be only a middle-aged man or a young-aged man or a senior citizen or a super senior citizen. Because Aam Aadmi as a prospect is an Aam Aadmi. See, for example, today let us get back to the situation where a children or a child are deprived of their education. Many would always feel that, yes, I would have also liked to go and study in a good school with a good education and with a good, a good setup where so that the future would look a little bit certain. But unfortunately, what happens is, like, even if he is in that age group, for example, students are in the age group of say between 15 and 30 or something like that. So at that point, being an Aam Aadmi, I think he feels himself deprived of those that category of education which otherwise he would have achieved if he was a Khas Aadmi, I would say. I mean, probably if he would have been able to get that amount of influence and try to get the seat through other ways and means which are prevalent, which of course everybody knows about it. So I wouldn't really put the Aam Aadmi tag only to an age as far as my personal opinion goes. I would also look at it in the other age groups. It could be even 20 to 50, it could be 50 to 70, it could be 70 to 90, provided God blesses him with a long life. So that is my viewpoint, that an Aam Aadmi is only, I think he is a more of a victim of circumstance, and probably a victim of circumstance can be anyone. It could be either a 20-year-old man or a 50-year-old man or a 90-year-old man. So that's how I would like to put it.
So do you agree to his summary statement, which says that, which reads as follows? At a minimum, we should qualify an Aam Aadmi based not only on economic strata and urbanness, that means urban, rural, suburban, and whether he is economically weaker section or middle class or rich class.
Right.
But also in terms of age, you should add age as a dimension. That is, you should create like young urban Aam Aadmi or middle aged or old senior citizen.
I really don't know where this classification of young urban and young rural and all came from, because
See, you told in the previous episode that Aam Aadmi is somebody who is facing reality,
yes,
which means day-to-day struggle for survival. You agree to that, right?
I do,
That is the understanding he is having, he is expressing. You are also of the same opinion.
I do.
Now, what problem each person faces day-to-day is different based on his age group.
Absolutely.
Student will have his own problems, a working person will have his own problems, and a retired man will have his own
Will
problems.
have his own problems.
So I find that this argument is valid. You should basically, put a disclaimer, or when you express your views on hot topics, that's a middle-aged man's view. A person who is having reasonably some 20-25 years of experience in life, in addition to being a student, that kind of a view is what you are expressing. And the younger generation who are still students may or may not be able to relate to it. That is true, right?
Not only relate to it, they will not be in a position to express that as a way I would like to express. Because being
expression is a function of creativity.
Being an Aam Aadmi, it's my what you say, it's my duty to cover each and every section which might fall into that class. For example, say if you call a 20-year-old man, he may not be able to answer your question with the same amount of confidence or same amount of data which I can produce based on my experience again, because yes, I am a middle-aged man and I have tons of experience before me or behind me, I would say. due to which I can correlate facts and put. But suppose I had somebody along with me, suppose I had somebody who is of a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old or something, but he would also like to express his thoughts, but he doesn't find a medium, or he doesn't find good people like you who can really ask him what he feels about in his life or what he goes through in his life. So he'll not be in a position to answer it cohesively, I would say, as probably I would like to put it across to him. So that way I would say that I would like to speak with reference to people also who have been in that age group, but unfortunately who have not been able to achieve what a Khas Admi achieves compared to an Aam Admi.
No, anyway, Khas Admi is totally out of our debate. Generally, of course, you are qualifying yourself, that's good classification, but we never talk about Khas Admi.
No, it was only a comparison.
Among Aam Admi itself,
Yeah,
I do definitely see some logic in this.
right.
That we should qualify that our discussion is that is taking place amongst middle-aged men. So audience, see, some people, that's the reason why what he's saying, right? The closing statement of his letter is very interesting. He says, definitely I would not want to watch each episode with my uncle. What it implies is, if your thoughts are so expressed that it needs a similar age group guy to interpret that for that other guy to understand, the younger chap to understand, no? Then it creates a dependency. That is his concern, is just telling.
No, I respect. No, I 100% respect, because every point is respectful, because the way the gentleman has, masterminded his questions in a way, and there again, like he has the presence of his respected uncle along with him, who can really try to explain to him what the facts and figures are. So in a similar manner, I would like to represent that section of the society, which unfortunately, that was what I was telling. That section of the society who is not privileged enough to come and express the views, because today, thanks to the impressions which technology has created, that even a 10-year-old boy is as brave as a 50-year-old man in expressing himself. Thanks very much to technology, and thanks very much to the way life has taken a complete turn in the last 5 decades or so. But there are still certain sections of people who are not that confident in coming and expressing what they need to really put it across to the people who matter. So I think I feel very much privileged to play a role where, given such opportunities to me, I can speak for them as well, and I can speak for a generation older than us as well, where we can try to get some justice done for them.
So he has used the term fatalism, sir. So I would like to draw a parallel reference to that. That is an additional reference rather. See, some years back, Nandan Nilekani, one of the co-founders of Infosys,
I have heard about
he has come out with a bold statement, where he said, young India is no longer fatalistic. That is the statement he has made. So we have a very heavyweight voice behind this proposition that young India is not fatalistic. So of course I explained what fatalism means. I read it out from the references section. What is your thoughts on that? Are you fatalistic? Are you a fatalistic person? Do you believe in fate and you put everything? I mean, what is your stand on fate first? Because majority of the people of our age are fatalistic people. It is the next generation, that is millennials and the new crop, the new class of people, that is generation Y, that is people who are born from 1985 or 90 onwards. They are the generation that is being called as non-fatalistic. Anybody who is belonging to our age group may say that I'm befallen my bad luck or misfortune. Those kind of they have those kind of outlook whenever they face difficulty or whenever they face failure in any task that they take up. Resigning to fate, as it is called.
Yes. Resigning to fate. Yes.
So Aam Admi, Sriram, who is he? I mean, is he a fatalistic guy or is he not?
Aam Admi Sriram is partially fatalistic, yes. because he has come down from that generation where the meaning of fate has been correctly made to understand to him. I would say fate definitely has a role to play in everybody's life. Whether he is an Aam Aadmi or a privileged Aadmi or whatever it is, definitely fate
No,
has
let's
to...
not talk about the privileged army.
Yes,
at
no,
all.
I am just telling. I mean, when it comes to a question of fate, it is better understood by us. That's what I was coming to, because we have come through that generation who has taught us what role fate can play.
So you believe in fate?
I believe in fate. Yes, I believe in
Okay,
fate.
now the proposition is young India is no longer fatalistic. Okay, let's say majority is true. I mean, there are always exceptions, but let us say that Mr. Nandan Nilekani is true in his observation, because he is a man, he is a data-driven man.
Yes. He is a powerful man.
Powerful, but he is data-driven. He is basically fact.
data-driven.
If he tells something, definitely it is backed by some
Facts
strong
and figures.
evidence and facts and all the stuff.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's not. He is not bullshitting basically.
No. I have my own.
So
respects
my
for him.
question is, do you think the young generation which is not fatalistic is good for India or bad for India, or how do you see it?
What I would put it across is the understanding what young India has about fate is only half. Probably if young India had those sort of teachers or those sort of mentors whom we had luckily during our times, probably the young Indians would have also understood what role fate would have had to play in their particular life. I would definitely say that a lack of understanding definitely prevails in this section of the society, where probably they have been more accustomed to the aristocratic way of life. More often than not, you would see people just living by themselves without really even trying to understand the basic facts and figures of life. I would definitely say that this is due to the lack of understanding in basic aspects of life also, which young India is unfortunately facing. But really we cannot go back in time and try to drive home certain points which is beyond either our capacity to drive or their capacity to understand. There is a famous saying which all of us will know, that you can take the horse to the pond and you cannot make it drink. So probably we as seniors who have seen life before us, and there has been a generational change due to many aspects, of course that's a different topic altogether, and due to that, even if we try to even if you try to share those experiences with the Gen X class of today, I don't think it will be accepted in that degree of confidence or that degree of acceptability, I would say, as we would have liked them to understand. But yes, I as a man who has experienced the role of fate, I would definitely say it is fate, what to do.
Alright, just to keep to the same topic, see, when Nilekani kind of person says that young India is no longer fatalistic, he is talking from a perspective of taking risk, risk taking. And from the perspective of this person who has written a letter, who is a young chap, for him, negating fatalism implies hard work will yield results. That is basically reducing uncertainty of an outcome by working in a smart way, with an intelligent way, and by putting the right amount of effort across the right time span, so that the with a methodical approach. That's what he says, that life is a method and not a game of chance. He has mentioned that. So from the perspective of young India, not being fatalistic means trying to be methodical and believing in that hard work will yield results, will yield the fruits. Of course, he is also using smart hard work, which means you should match your effort to the objective that you have.
You have to. It should be objective driven.
So
Absolutely.
Going back to Nilekani, again it's all about taking risks. So I'll give an example based on our observation. See, when we did plus 2, our fathers common. Aam Aadmi's father was not betting more than a bicycle.
Yes, of course.
But today, because even license it takes 18 years, and until you finish 12th, you cannot really get a driving license. But today, you would have seen that many youngsters, even school, they get a bike.
They do.
This kid which is getting a bike or whatever it is, right? It is the father who has taken a loan or he has funded it. It is not the kid's own.
It can never be that way, yes.
The point is, for him it is a flight of freedom. But for his father who has taken a loan betting on his son, he is taking a risk.
He is.
That's okay. Eventually this guy will come succeed, and he'll pay,
That's what the hopes of his father will be always.
One of the very strong arguments which I have seen with some of the acquaintances that I know, why I buy a bike for my kid is because he has to save time in commute. Because cycle means it will take 40 minutes, bike is 10 minutes. So 30 minutes more is getting, which he can apply for studies or whatever useful purpose. So that's the time management argument that comes into play from the parent side.
Right.
But the parent really is a hopeful guy.
Right.
Here's a parent who is very hopeful,
Right.
but from a fatalistic generation.
Right.
A kid who is not fatalistic, who is hopeful from based on hard work. He says hard work is going to give me the results, no matter what. It's method. It's not a game of chance. And there are industry captains like Nilekani who are basically saying that they are corroborating. They are basically promoting this same idea, saying that you should work hard and you should be methodical, rather than treating everything as a game of chance and resigning to fate. And what they are saying, the industry captains, they say, when you fail, learn the lesson and don't repeat it in the next attempt. Whatever lessons you learned. So this is the way you succeed. That is how they coined the term, failures are stepping stones to success.
I was about to tell that. Yes.
So, today's generation is not fatalistic. That is a new generation. No? The young India is not a fatalistic generation. Nilekani has made that observation some 10 years back, but I agree to it. How about you? Do you also agree?
Yes, I would agree there.
Because I believe you also have some people, right, or some relatives of yours who are from that young millennial generation.
They are.
You interact with them also, I believe.
Yes, I do.
So what's your experience? How do you see? I mean, are they fatalistic or are they like
no, I mean,
believe
yes,
in hard work? And
I definitely feel there is a difference which has come over the years. I definitely feel them more rejuvenated and more excited to face things as they come these days, and not just resigned to fate or anything like that.
That is a function of hope. They are highly hopeful, you are saying.
No, not only hopeful. I mean, again, coming back to the gentleman's question about resigning to fate, that is what is their understanding.
That is something which I am actually.
Whoever. It's in their perspective today. I think the real essence to fate and all doesn't have that much of a bearing as much as, say, live life in the present, for example. In our generations and in our parents' generations, we would always look at, trying to establish something for ourselves and for our next generation for years to come. Like for generations to come, we would try to get the base set so that they can build a building on that. But unfortunately, today's generation, probably I have my own doubts, or I have my own reservations whether such a thought process will ever come into their mind where they need to follow a similar way what we did in the past. So yes, coming back to Nilekani sir's reference, I would definitely say that today's generation is not fatalistic, and yes, his idea about putting in extreme hard work will definitely pay results. And hard work should again be focus oriented, because hard work can just be put into any sort of activity, and only the result will say whether that work was really worth it or not. For example, we see today's young India trying to, they have their hot blood, I would always say, trying to exercise their potential in many ways. For example, 3 people riding on a bicycle and trying to do a trying to do a stunt or something. That is also hard work. Doing a stunt is not easy in life. But again, whether you survive that stunt or not is again fate. So here I would say that even if you put hard work, there should be some sort of a direction that really the area where you're putting hard work, is it really worth or not? And that direction has to be given by their guardians or parents or whoever they are. So yes, hard work definitely yields result, but it should be in the right direction, is what I would like to say.
So does hard work reduce the chance of failure?
It does. It definitely does, to a large extent. I would say it is a vaccine for failure. I would definitely not say that hard work is a cure for failure. But obviously, yes, if you put your work, if you do your job, definitely the confidence level increases, and you can always be assured that there is something which might happen. And if you are a man who has the guile to take failure and success equally, then you are a successful man.
Okay, so the next point of view is,
Yes.
see, when we work in office, there are two propositions. You can be a freelancer, self-employed, or you can run your own company, entrepreneur, or you can be a full-time employee in some office. Three scenarios are there. I am talking about the third scenario where we are employees of an office. Now, an office is a controlled environment. Objectives are clearly established and everybody is assigned a role and responsibility, and they need to follow that, pursue that to catch the end goal of the project or the organization. So there, people of different age groups and different beliefs can coexist and
Yes, obviously.
become a team to produce a result,
Yes.
which is of benefit to that company which employs them.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Now, in your case, you are a freelancer. What I would like to ask, you are a fatalistic guy. I understand, that is what I understand. Okay. So now suppose some young people who are not fatalistic, who want to join, team up with you, do you think you will succeed by working with them or being a part of, making them as a part of your team?
I would definitely succeed because
Why I am asking this question again is because you are being a freelancer, you are not in a controlled environment. Whereas in an office, we are in a controlled environment and the objective is owned by somebody else. In your case as a freelancer, you have one objective of your own, which is to satisfy the objective of others to make some money. So in this circumstance of an uncontrolled environment, do you think you can succeed by teaming up with people who are not fatalistic?
yes, I would, and I would like to answer this question this way. I am a freelancer now. I am a freelancer only since the past 3 years. I have got about 25 years of work experience, having worked in various sectors and in various positions of responsibilities. And believe me, all of this has been in a controlled environment.
Yes.
In the office. And it all depends on how you actually as an individual see them. I have had the privilege of having worked with people who are in the age group of 20 and 25 years. But believe me, today even if I am 48 years old, I have always felt that I am only 24 years old when I work with them. Because it is all again in the mind. Like probably I would like to say, if you try to put yourself back into those years where you were also in the same position, how you would have reacted and what all did you experience? And if you try to use the same experience in molding them, I don't see any problem why I should not get along with people of that age, irrespective of whether I am in a controlled environment or an uncontrolled environment. Today, I am also happy to say that a couple of my clients whom I am serving as a content writer and as a freelancer are in the age group of 30 to 35 years, which is at least 13-14 years younger to what I am. But I am happy to say that whenever I have interacted with them, I have never brought that seniority into picture, or neither have they really approached me as if they are in an inferior position, I would say. They have never looked at me like, oh, such a senior man, how can we really stand beside him, or how can we talk to him? And similarly, I have not looked at them by saying that, oh, he is only 20 years, how can I move around with him? But if we need to get work done, or if our work or our job profile envisages that we have to take people of all age groups along with us, then I am made up for that and I have experienced that. So I would always say that I will get along with anyone irrespective of their age.
So what you are telling is, you will not try to influence your fatalistic ideas on the younger generation, but rather just focus on the outcome that is required
Absolutely.
when you work with a team.
Absolutely. I will like to support them to the best extent it is possible, and I would like to give them full freedom to perform, because there is no point in helping them, rather making them work in a guarded atmosphere. So I would like to give them complete freedom to discharge their responsibilities, and not once but twice or thrice or even 10 times if it is required for me to correct them or guide them or direct them, I will always be ready for that. My end point is that they should learn out of what they are there for, and they should learn out of their own actions rather than somebody's guidance.
Is there a possibility that you might become non-fatalistic by their influence?
No, not at all. Because as I said, people of this generation or 20 years back or something like that, they are not aware of the effects of, or they are not aware of the definition of fate in general. So there is no point in me becoming a non-fatalistic man, because I always believe in my own abilities, in my own directions which I have received from my parents in the past. So there is no possibility that I would deviate from those teachings.
So if there's a certain circumstance where you think being non-fatalistic is of benefit, will yield some good results, then would you adopt non-fatalism, or would you continue to be fatalistic in that circumstance?
If it is partially yielding any results, then I would always attempt it in a positive way. Whichever is the activity to be attempted, I will always attempt it in a positive way. Well, I would feel disappointed if I have failed or anything despite my efforts, which I would definitely yield it to, say, fate or bad luck or whatever we call it as. But the other 50%, I would always be happy that yes, I have attempted that in the right royal way. So I would always attempt something which is worth attempting. Even if you ask me to ride behind a bike and do a wheelie, I would not do that. And for that, I would respect two things. One is my own ability, and one is age. I have the respect for my own age. And today, even if I am by God's grace, even if I have the strong mental will to do anything what a 20 or 25-year-old man does, but I would not risk myself, because I have got lot many years to go ahead, as much as God has written for me. So live life every day, live life young, live life confident, and live life happy.
So do you think there is a correlation between fatalism and superstition? Are you a superstitious guy?
What is your definition of superstition?
Let's say a cat crosses the road, will you stop? That's a practice in India, right? Many parts. When a cat crosses the road, you stop and wait for a few seconds and then proceed.
No, not really, because many
No, that
times.
is an example.
Yeah.
So the moot question is fatalism and superstition connected? Is there a correlation? Is there a connection?
I would say that, again, it depends on how many people have been following that. Because if you ask.
To put it another way, highly superstitious people are always fatalistic. True or false?
Might be true. Because I cannot say 100% yes or 100% no.
Are you a superstitious guy?
A little bit.
Okay, in a scale of 1 to 10, how superstitious are you? 10 being the highest.
About 4 or something.
4. And how about fatalism? In the same scale?
About 4 again.
4 again. So there's a strong correlation in your case.
Yes.
That you are moderately fatalistic and moderately superstitious.
Yes.
But you don't think that necessarily leads to a correlation between superstition and fatalism?
I don't see, because things can happen even without superstition. Because if you.
Then how about luck? You use the term luck, right?
Yes.
there's a very classic definition of luck by somebody. That is, when opportunity meets talent, it's called luck. Okay, that's the classic definition for some businessman has told. But let's keep that aside. Fatalism and luck are having a strong correlation. Do you agree? I am very lucky. That means, sometimes, or I am very unlucky.
I don't see it has a strong correlation as such, because I can always say that I am very lucky, but it is my fate. I cannot say that. Because I am very lucky, yes, I am very lucky. That's it. But
Or do you mean to say only bad luck is the fate?
no, I mean, if bad luck and fate are equally defined, then I would have to agree with that.
No, I mean, how you see it? How does Aam Aadmi see it, rather?
And Aam Aadmi would always see it with the understanding which he has about these sort of words. Bad
So
luck.
these are, see, the reason why I am bringing up these topics. There is because there is a systematic deconstruction of these belief systems over time due to whatever the vested interest that is prevailing at that time. But the people of our generation, people, we have stuck with these words. Superstition, luck, fatalism and all those things. So we need to find a correlation, make a meaning, and if there is merit, then we should basically explain our point of view. If it is a demerit, then we should expose that as well. Nilekani has told. So I should 100% agree. Is that the position, or is it fact based?
No, it is fact based, because
So that's why I am asking. We spoke about fatalism.
Yes.
We spoke about superstition.
Yes.
And you are not agreeing that there is a strong correlation between superstition and fate.
Yes.
That means one can be fatalistic without being superstitious,
Yes.
and vice versa.
Yes. Yes.
Now I am bringing the third argument called luck. So is fatalism and luck, anybody who is fatalistic will believe in good luck and bad luck.
They will.
They will.
Yes. And
So
that's
there's a
what.
stronger correlation between luck and fatalism.
Yes, I would say yes. From again, from an I'm an Aam Aadmi. I am talking from an Aam Aadmi's perspective, from my own perspective,
yes,
being
yes,
an
yes.
Aam Aadmi. Again, it is, I would say, where you come from. For example, if you talk from an urban culture, the definition is different from when you talk from a rural culture.
So you are a middle class, middle-aged, urban Aam Aadmi. That's the definition. Let's say fix it for you now.
Just an Aam Aadmi, because I have lived life in the rural sector as
You
well.
have now.
Yes. So
we started this series.
No, that's
everything
right.
when you are an urban guy, right?
no, urban, yes,
So
but I
let
would
us be
like to-
fair to that argument, and let us keep it as an urban Aam Aadmi. You are a middle class economically. You are a middle-aged person, which you agreed. So you are a middle class, middle-aged urban Aam Aadmi. Let us take that stance, and then you tell.
I would actually wouldn't like to classify as myself as an urban Aam Aadmi. I would like
Then
to
what?
classify
Suburban?
as only
Rural?
an Aam Aadmi. Only an Aam Aadmi, because I have lived life the urban way and the
So,
rural way.
Let us.
That's why.
I request you to put on the cap of an urban Aam Aadmi and answer this question.
If you are asking me to put that cap on,
Yes, yes.
then my definition of whatever happens to an Aam Aadmi from a rural sector doesn't have any coherence here.
No. Our moot point was, is luck and fatalism having a strong correlation. So you said that urban may change rural, something you bought in
Yes,
the urban
yes,
rural
because it
argument.
has. Because I
So
have.
I am requesting you to put on the urban hat and talk. How do you see the correlation between luck and fatalism? Are they one and same, or is there a very strong correlation but they're different things?
They are different, I would say. They are not the same.
Is there a strong correlation between them?
Again, it is circumstance based. Again, as an urban Aam Aadmi again views it, and his understanding of what fate and luck is, probably. There are many people who may not even understand what fate and luck is, even being in the urban lifestyle. See, again, if I have to come back to it, education plays a lot of role in this. And there are many people who living in the urban lifestyle also don't have much idea about what luck is, what fate is, what correlation is and all. So probably only people who have really had some sort of an exposure to these sort of words would be able to answer these questions with confidence. Whether it is acceptable to the people or not is different. But yes, as what we would like to speak is, we would like to speak with great degree of confidence in what we have learnt and what we have gathered over the years. But as I if you ask my personal perspective, yes, I would always say it is circumstance based, and yes, that's how about it.
How important are moral values, sir? Do you think it's important?
They are important. Moral values do have a lot of things to offer. Moral values really teach you how to present yourself, how to conduct yourself, and how to maintain a good temperament. I mean, there are in this, I wouldn't blame any individual, but due to the circumstances prevailing around, not only today but hitherto and in the future also, there is every chance that an individual might lose his composure. He might lose his
I
temperament.
want to actually qualify my question because I think your response is moving in some other direction. So bring it back to track now. I'll give you an example. So there was an old Amitabh movie called The Great Gambler. So in the starting point, he is basically having a deck of cards in his hand and he's
Yes.
tweaking that.
Yes.
And his sister comes, he goes to his father's photo and he says, please bless me luck today in my today's gambling session. Then his sister walks into the scene, that opening of that movie, right? If you have seen that
I
movie,
know.
She walks into the benefit of everybody, I'm just saying that.
I've been a big Amitabh fan myself.
So
I've
she
seen
comes
that.
into the scene and she says, what kind of blessing, you are asking your father
Yes.
that you are going to gamble, you want luck. That time Amitabh's reply is very, very interesting. What Amitabh says, gambling is my job and I am asking for luck in my job. This is the classic example I want to take to talk about moral values. See, gambling is illegal per se. And if the government has made a law, that means it is, if you are going against every citizen of the country has a moral obligation to be in line with the constitution of the country. And if the laws says something is wrong, then he should accept that proposition and not practice that illegal activity, right?
Yes, obviously. I would 100%.
So that is a stance of a moral value.
Yes, of
So
course.
given that, do you think moral value is important for the new young India generation? Do you think India will benefit from high moral values or not?
India will benefit definitely, sir. But again, to inculcate those moral values, you need to have certain quality people.
No,
See, for
that is the second
example, that has a very important.
my only point is where moral values.
No, I
See,
agree.
because this person who has asked the question, he has one statement which says opportunism does not necessarily mean sacrifice of moral values. Okay. The reason why he is asking this is because in Aam Aadmi Conversation 5, we said that the village, the Aam Aadmi is the person who is having a towel on his shoulder, oily hair and chewing something, and is always scheming, who is a shrewd opportunist. Which means, that is how we discussed an Aam Aadmi's caricature in Aam Aadmi Conversation 5, which implied that when opportunity favors someone, he gives up moral values. That is what we discussed in 5, which is true. If you see anywhere, if you go today, I don't want, let's take Manrega, right? MNREGA scheme is there, no? Rural Employment Guarantee
Rural
Scheme.
employment, yes.
Now, half the people are basically two-timers. That means they are actually farmers in one part of the year. Another part of the year, they are basically Manrega employees. So, whether the Manrega is really serving its purpose is a question mark. And that's a debate for another day. But as an example, I wanted to share that people, when they spot an opportunity, they try to basically give up on their moral values. If something, my moral value doesn't permit doing that, on the other hand, if I do that, I am standing to benefit immensely. So the conflict of interest is generated and the moral value is given up. This is what we discussed in ASC 5. This guy is contradicting here. He is saying for the young generation which is method based or a model based life, it's not game of chance. For a young generation which is hopeful, and thinking, positive thinking is welcome and all those things he starts telling, right? He says one need not sacrifice moral values to be opportunistic in today's times. So that is the reason why I am asking you about moral values before we talk about opportunism. How has your experience in life been with moral values?
I have.
Have you come across such situation? Like great gambler situation.
Where first of all, to play a role in the film in itself is a far-sighted wish, I would say. But being on the lighter vein, I have never come across any situation where I have had to compromise on any moral values of mine to really move forward in life. But I would definitely say that compromising moral values is really not good. No matter you are promised the moon before you. But at the same time, if you look at today's generation, I mean, it's all about money. It's all about making money. Hook or crook, you make money. But of course, given such an opportunity,
You mean to say being commercially successful? That's what you mean.
successful, yeah, commercially successful. But today's generation, I am not really sure as to what way they will adopt. But by going by the present situation, what it prevails as of today, I would definitely suggest that as much as possible, please do not compromise in your moral values, which is not easily attained. It is attained only out of sheer focus, hard work, and one of the best directions if you are lucky enough to receive it. So I would say moral values maintained as much as possible will lead you on the right path.
So you tend to agree with that guy when he says that opportunism need not sacrifice on moral values.
Yes.
In today's India and in
today's
future.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So the next term that he has used in his letter is something called hypocrisy.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on hypocrisy? Is it situational? Is it a state of mind or an attitude? How do you see it?
It could be attitude. It could
At
be,
least I know some of my relatives and friends.
Huh.
They are very hypocritic.
It could be situation based as well, I would say, and it could be attitude as too. I am a strong opposer of hypocrisy. I would always say that if you commit on something, unless there is a natural reason for that not to be met, see that you meet your commitments to the best possible extent. There could be reasons which might prevent you from meeting that, but if there are genuine reasons, always that is pardonable. But at the same time, if you have committed something, stay with your commitment. Don't speak something and do the opposite.
So let me give you a concrete example, sir, because it's always good, because otherwise the hook is lost.
Yeah.
The reference is lost. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Say you have gone to a sales meet. Okay, and you're pitching, you're actually doing the sale, and your potential customer, he loves champagne, whereas you don't, you're a teetotaler, you don't drink. So now you are in a situation where you might need to please him by sharing a cup or a glass, one shot. Under the circumstance, what will you do? That is suppose you agree to have a shot with him of champagne, then you have become hypocritic. Okay, with this example we'll talk.
See, probably, there are two ways to look at this. One is, if you're representing an organization as the head of the organization, or if you're representing an organization only in the position which you are scheduled to represent.
No, I have given you the sample scenario.
Yeah, that's what
you
I'm
are
saying.
doing the sale.
Yeah, that's what.
You are a person who is responsible for closing the sale.
Yes. What I would do is, I would not jump into an immediate decision to offer champagne to
Not
him.
offer. Let's say he calls you.
Yes. I would always.
He says, "Come on, Ram, let's have some champagne. Let's sip on some champagne and discuss this." Something he says, and he takes you away to a nearby restaurant.
Yes, but again, I would initially read his mind as to what is the idea behind calling me for a champagne. If it is a regular client where I am at the freedom to take my own decisions, and since he has come many times and we have been successful in closing a deal, but then still, to make him happy, I would accompany him. But having a champagne or not having a champagne is totally at my behest. I might always tell him that I am not used to this, and probably if there is an opportunity or if there is something, an alternative which I prefer, then I would request and welcome that. But if an entire deal depends only on having a champagne or not having a champagne, I would not compromise and go and drink a champagne just for getting the business done. I would still stay where I am and leave it to the deciders to decide that.
So, do you think that hypocrisy and moral values have a strong correlation? A hypocrite doesn't have high moral values, true or false?
A hypocrite doesn't have high moral values. True. Definitely.
Okay.
I would agree to that. Lock, stock, and barrel.
So, one of the observation today is that one need not be hypocritic to win business deals or succeed in life. Okay. So that is what he is mentioning. The next generation, how young India's thinking is what he has come up. So in young India doesn't believe in hypocrisy to be successful. See another example of a hypocrisy is, let's say you are conducting some ceremony at your home and you have called the priest. And the priest agrees to some shortcut which you are suggesting him, although he knows it is wrong. Because at the end of the day, his benefit is the fees that you are going to give him for performing the ceremony. Let's say he says it will take 1 hour, and you say, I want to finish it in half an hour, finish it off. Like that, you just give an instruction to him. So he finds a shortcut and he does it. That is a classic case of hypocrisy, because he is doing what he is not supposed to do. He is having a different face that is showing to the outside world, and he is having another face for his own self. See, always in any example you take, opportunism, moral values and hypocrisy always come as a pair or as a team or a group. If you sacrifice, or if you want to capitalize on opportunism, you may have to go down on moral values, which means you will become a hypocrite. So that is a correlation,
Yes, I understand this correlation in a more better way now. But yes, again, it all boils down to how much of an independent understanding an individual has about all these things. You are talking about a priest. Why do we call a priest to our house? Suppose we were equally knowledgeable about all sorts of the rituals which a priest performs, and if we knew, then probably we would have tried to counter him in every step he would have taken. There again, we are not as well informed as a priest would be to conduct that particular activity. So obviously, if we say that just get this done in half an hour, and he compromises on the steps, then we have to believe that yes, these are all what is required to get the work done in half an hour. So that time we will not be really thinking about any hypocrisy or any other activity, because we have to get the things done in the knowledge what we have. Suppose there are some shlokas, there are some mantras, for example, which we are aware of, and he skips them, then we can contradict them. But at the same time, we will have to be ready with the reply from him saying that you wanted this to be done in half an hour, because otherwise if we had included all those things, it would have taken 1.5 hours. That to be countered, we should be equally knowledgeable. So since we are not as knowledgeable as a priest is, taking this example, probably we will have to just compromise and get things done so that both of us are satisfied.
Okay, sir, quick rapid fire yes or no session last before we close heavy topic today.
No, there is one more thing which I allow to tell before we close.
Yeah, please. So, you can.
No, after the rapid fire.
Okay. So, young India is not fatalistic, and it is good for the future of India. Yes or no?
Rapid
fire, yes or no?
Young India is not fatalistic. And
Yeah,
it is
Young
good
India is
for-
not fatalistic, that's a fact, and it's good for
Young
India.
India is not. I think I cannot say yes or a no independently in this because both are involved. Young India is not fatalistic. Yes.
Now, I put a gun on your head now.
Huh.
You have to choose either yes or no for this question. Young India is not a fatalistic, and it is good for the future of India. Yes or no?
Young India is not fatalistic. Yes.
Is it? It's not good for. I mean, regarding it being good for India,
Yes. I would say yes.
so it is good for India.
It's good for India.
Okay. So next question. One need not compromise on moral values to be opportunistic. True or yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And last yes or no question is, one need not be Hippocratic to capitalize on opportunities.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
So, excellent. So I am done with it. So you have some parting thoughts?
Nothing much. I would really like to thank the gentleman and his uncle for sitting together and spending time and coming out with such thought-provoking questions really helps us analyze things in the right perspective, and it tries to also educate us and helps us know if we have missed something in our life. Knowledge is never ending, it can be had from anyone. Path is never ending, it can be had from anyone. And as we part, एक छोटा सा शायरी में अर्ज
अरे
करना
आज
चाहता हूँ.
कीजिए सर शौक से.
अर्ज करते हैं. कोई माल में खुश है, कोई दाल में खुश है, इंसान तो वही है जो हर हाल में खुश है.
अरे वाह, क्या बात है सर. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Was
so
a
much.
Fantastic discussion and
Thank
more
you so much.
exploring topics.
My privilege, and I
Thank you.
really enjoyed talking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.